Any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jim. All right, so Liam did a good job of warming this up on compliance, but this is actually the compliance panel here. So let's talk about that here. So thanks for joining us today, and thanks for staying around for as long as you have. And if I can find which one works, that's me. As Jim just pointed out, and I saw Suber here, one of my co-authors as well. We did actually write a book on cloud security and privacy, and I have been in this space for quite some time.
I've read that one.
These are our panelists today, minus one. We're not sure where Bill is, but... oh, okay. Well, he is here. He's reappeared. Okay, so I'll come back and introduce the panelists formally in just a moment here. With regards to the panel itself, let me just say a couple things, please. It's been a lot from up here out to you today. We very much encourage your questions. Please ask questions. We'd like this to be as interactive as possible. Interactive is a lot more interesting. Batch mode tends to be pretty boring for everyone concerned. So please ask questions, and please come forward to use the microphones to ask your questions. I'm going to focus today, and I want to focus the panel specifically on Section 2 of the CSA guidance, which concerns governing in the cloud. Since we don't have any lawyers on the panel, thankfully, we're going to eliminate the legal and e-discovery. And really what I want to do is focus instead on domains 2 and 4. So let's start with that, please, on that. So that said, I'd like to introduce our panelists now formally. and appearing just in time there is, starting then to my left, your right, then is Bill Pennington. Bill is the Chief Strategy Officer at WhiteHat Security, and his duties include management of research and development, guidance of product and technology direction, and developing business partnerships. Prior to joining WhiteHat, Bill was a principal consultant and technical lead for assessment at Guardant, a national security services provider. Bill has also written 3 Hacker's Choice books. Sitting next to Bill is Arti, Raman, who is the Vice President of Products and Alliances at Agiliance. Arti heads a team responsible for product planning, design, management, marketing, plus partner and advisory programs for Agiliance. She joined the company from Critical Research Group, a firm that she had founded in 2005 to help young companies receive product and marketing feedback from senior executives at Fortune 500 companies. Arti has a bachelor's degree in economics from Delhi University in India, and she received her MBA from the William Simon Graduate School of Business at the University of Rochester in New York. Apparently, she got tired of the heat in Delhi and decided to move to the other end of the thermometer, so she moved to Rochester, which probably gets more snow in one winter week than Delhi's ever had. So, sitting next to Arti is Eran Feigenbaum. Eran is the Director of Security for Google Apps at Google. As the Director for Google Apps, Eran defines and implements security strategy for Google's suite of solutions of enterprise products. And prior to joining Google in 2007, Eran was the U.S. Chief Information Security Officer for PricewaterhouseCoopers. He has a bachelor's degree in electrical and computer engineering from the University of California at Irvine. Go Anteaters. And he also has an MBA from Pepperdine University. In his spare time, he enjoys performing magic and mentalism and was featured on the TV show Phenomenon. In fact, if you go out to YouTube there, you can actually see some of the videos of Eran performing magic tricks under his stage name of Eran Raven. So you might want to check that out. I thought he actually was performing a magic act here today and had made Bill disappear, but Bill obviously showed up.
And I reappeared. I was right.
And he reappeared.
I'm good.
Okay, and then sitting on the end is Pam Fusco. Pam is the Vice President for Industry Solutions at Solutionary. Pam has been in information security for many years and has held senior positions at several companies, and I'll just leave it at that.
Many years.
Many years, many years.
Not longer than Dave Cullinane.
Okay, so again, welcome your questions. Let's make this as interactive as possible. And Eran Raven, let me start with you, please.
Wait, Tim, I'll start revealing secrets about you later, too.
Okay. Verizon has obtained PCI compliance for a portion of their computing as a service offering. Amazon Web Services has obtained PCI Level 1 compliance for their EC2 offering, as well as ISO 27001 certification. Google has obtained FISMA certification and accreditation for Google Apps for Government. What is Google doing as far as compliance for your commercial customers?
At first, I was trying to see how many more acronyms can he stick into one question. So I think as a cloud provider, and the announcement from RSA today about cloud trust and other trust certifications and trust initiatives, as a cloud provider, nothing would make me happier than having a single certification that all customers accepted. Right? I mean, it would be wonderful if one body came in, did an in-depth audit, security assessment, certification, call it whatever you want, and then gave that result out to everybody. Who wants that? Just making sure if you're awake. But that's not the case, right? The issue is we have many different bodies and certifications out there. So FISMA, there was a major drive for the federal government to have a FISMA certification. We're very, very focused on our customers and what our customers are looking for and want. So we also have a SAS 70 Type 2, and switching that this year as the AICPA standards switches to a SASE 16. I have to make that one easier to say. That does not roll off the tongue at all. And then keep on looking at future things. So I don't want to commit at this point to a ISO 27001 certification, but if that becomes more popular and more customers require that and request that, then maybe that's something we'll consider.
Okay, so let's follow up on that, and specifically for Arti, since you're obviously in the compliance space from a product perspective. We have FISMA, GLBA, HIPAA, PCI, SOX, CSA's own CCM, CAM, FedRAMP, ISO 27001, yada, yada, yada. How do we rationalize all these compliance efforts and halt this growing problem of what I call compliance sprawl?
So I think the challenge for any organization in a multi-regulatory environment is obviously to make sense of both the worlds. So there's all of these regulations and frameworks that have overlapping purposes, and there's a lot of work been done in mapping these to each other and to frameworks, and the heart of GRC systems have this notion of a common control framework or a unified control framework where these things are mapped. But there's also, how to take that and map it to your world of your assets. So that is a distributed world as well, where assets are related to each other, where they contain certain sets of data. To figure out, what data is governed by what regulation is a challenge. So I think what you can do is map these against each other. CSA has done a great job in their controls matrix of mapping against as many different regulations and frameworks as possible. But just to map those together and have a system to manage that by way of process, I think will take us a step closer.
So Pam, what are your thoughts? Are earlier compliance frameworks that might be used with cloud offerings, and I'm thinking about FISMA and PCI, are they sufficient, or do we really need new compliance frameworks specifically intended to address cloud offerings? I'm thinking about FedRAMP as an example, the CSA's Cloud Control Matrix, and CAM, the Common Assurance Maturity Model.
I think you definitely can leverage the existing guidance and standards that have been set forth today. And that are in certain organizations, simply because there's a lot invested in that, right? They're sort of tried and true in certain companies, and to get someone to adopt something completely new and differently holistic, it's a huge change, right? So leveraging what exists today, but yet progressing forward with additional complexities that need to be integrated into the compliance frameworks, if you will. And because there's a constant in this industry, and that's stuff's going to change. It's probably changed since we've been sitting in this room, right? So nothing is set forth in stone, but you certainly should leverage what exists today, what works, and also, what Eran said, kind of do your cross-matrix balance. Get your lowest common denominator. If this requirement is X, Y, and Z, and the next one is A, B, C, 6 passwords, 20, whatever you need, go with that to meet the objective across the board. But then again, you still have to continue forward, so it's not going to be something you can leave in place for 5 years. You've got to look at the evolution of technology, of your business. If your business changes, I mean, I look at some companies that used to be a software license company, and now they're in the data center business. That's a huge shift, which means different complexities, different frameworks.
I mean, one of the things, though, just to add, I mean, I like, for example, about FedRAMP is whether which controls you agree or not on the controls, the process that it attempts to do, which what Vivek talked about this morning, is to have a centralized, reusable certification, right? So hopefully a cloud provider goes through FedRAMP once, and then that gets reused.
Yeah. For those of you who may not know the acronym, FedRAMP is the Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program. And again, Vivek mentioned that this morning. It's based on NIST SP 800-53, and one of the things that they're also doing is, in effect, that's for the federal civilian government, but as part of that effort, they're also trying to level set that against the Department of Defense and the intelligence community as well. Bill, you're obviously focused on application security here. Are we collectively, both from the provider's perspective and from a customer due diligence perspective, are we paying sufficient attention to application security in the cloud?
Not really. I've been doing application security since '98, and every year we'd say, "Hey, people are starting to get it. People are starting to get it," and then people don't get it again. So yeah, it's really difficult because when I talk to our customers and our prospects, they really don't know how to do application security internally to begin with. And then they have people deploying stuff in the cloud. I know Google does lots of great work with their platform, but it's just understanding that, okay, now I'm putting my data out here. I'm having people maybe that are my employees or not my employees writing code that does authorization and access control to this particular data. What do I need to do to audit? And then some of the own cloud providers have kind of conflicting messages like, hey, don't test us. And then you're like, well, it's my app. Like, I should be able to test my app that I built just because it's on your platform. And that's a very sticky problem that we're running into is, I know Amazon has a policy that says, hey, don't do security tests. Well, is that a network test? Is that an app test? Are they even going to notice? Because they probably aren't. So those are very, very confusing things that we have to kind of overcome because, we do apps in production, we do apps in QA. Those are never the same. No matter how good change control you have, they never have the same vulnerabilities and the same weaknesses in the same place. And so absolutely. And from a compliance standpoint, I haven't seen it yet, right? You look at PCI is probably the most evolved. 6.6 is a terrible bit of amalgamation of stuff and things that someone threw together on a bender, I think, to say, hey, it's app security, right? Yeah, you can do any of this stuff. It's really cool. And at the end of the day, it comes down to the QSA. And the QSA is just, quite frankly, most of them don't know what they're talking about. So we get in conversations with QSAs that say, well, you don't even need to authenticate to pass PCI 6.6. Well, what? Like, I've tested your login page and that's it and that's good enough? Oh yeah, that's fine, right? And then other ones that are like, you have to show me every single thing you did. And I said, okay, so you're going to look at the 4 million requests we generated? Oh yeah, I'm going to totally look at that. Like, okay, right. So it's, I don't think, most of the other things don't have really application security in there from an operational perspective. Some of them do good stuff on like the pre-production, separation of duties, but once you deploy to production, they don't really mention it. It's kind of like, oh, well, I'm sure it's fine once it got out there.
Go to the mic there. Okay. Questions coming up. Questions from the audience encouraged.
Questions for Bill.
Yeah.
Have you taken a look at the Open Group Trusted Technology Provider framework that they're working on with the DoD as far as a certification criteria for application development, and how applicable is that to the cloud in your opinion? Because that's a standard that's coming out from Open Group. Open Group did Jericho, which you saw earlier today. We base a lot of our work in CSA on Jericho. So there's a common origin. But what do you think about the Trusted Technology Provider framework as is coming out of Open Group, sponsored by the DoD?
Yeah, so I haven't looked at that specifically, but I can just speak in generally. Most of those things, I think, they talk about secure development, but rarely do they seem to stop when it comes to deployment, and they go like, okay, well, if you did all of this stuff, I'm sure once you release it, it'll be fine. And, quite frankly, I've yet to run into a case where that's true.